Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're so pleased that you could join us today. We know that folks will be logging in likely in a couple of minutes as they continue to access the link. I wanted to just say that, we are so pleased to host this very special event today. Here at Indiana University at the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. This event is a culmination of a 13-week fellowship program supported by the Ford Foundation and jointly facilitated by the Association for Research on Civil Society in Africa, OROGSA, and the Association for Research on Nonprofit Organizations and Voluntary Associations, ARNOVA. This is the fourth cohort to go through this program, a program to support civil society leaders on the continent of Africa to document their experience and lay the groundwork for the successful transition from their organizations as leaders and often founders of these organizations. This program initiative of a brilliant leader and a wonderful human being, Innocent Chakuma, who was the director of the Ford Foundation's West Africa program for many years and whom we lost this year. My name is Lane Benjamin. I'm on the faculty here at the school and a longtime member of ARNOVA. I'm also the faculty advisor for the program, but I work in partnership with Anastasia Akawami, Kathy Kerrigan, and Mickey Levinton. Today, we're going to hear from 11 civil society leaders from across the continent of Africa about their experience leading their organizations. Having had the chance to learn from them over the past several weeks, I have to say that we are indeed very lucky to be able to hear from such amazing leaders. In the past, these presentations would have been made at the ARNOVA conference and the OROGSA conference, but with COVID, this is our effort to provide such a venue for them. They're all joining us from Accra in Ghana. We're going to try to make a slight adjustment to the schedule to better manage our time today. So rather than having Q&A after each presenter, we're going to have 3 to 4 fellows present, each giving a 10-minute presentation, and then we'll have 15 minutes for questions and answers at the end of each block of presenters. So I want you to feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go. We'll be monitoring that chat, and then we can pose those questions during the Q&A. Because this is a 3-hour time block, we also have allotted for 2 5-minute stretch breaks after the first and second hour. We know, having worked on Zoom all this year, that that's very important. And because of the time, I will not spend my time introducing the fellows one by one, but instead we'll call on them and leave it to them to introduce themselves and their organizations. So before we begin, I just wanted to recognize several important guests that we have in the audience, including Becky Moyo, who is the board chair of the OROGSA board, and several alumni from previous cohorts, which is very exciting. We also have our dean here, Amir Pasek, and I think our associate dean, Patrick Rooney, as well. So with that, I think I will turn it over to our first presenter, Ngwase Mwale, to start us off.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lane, for that introduction. If you allow me to share my screen. Okay. All right. Thank you so much all for being a part of this session. My name is Ngwase Banda Mwale. I'm the Executive Director for the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council in Zambia. And that is a Victoria Falls that you are seeing there in Zambia, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. I have been at the helm of NGOCC for the last 16 years. The topic of my chapter today is the role of membership-based non-government organizations in coordinating and building capacities of affiliate members to affect change, the case of NGOCC. NGOCC is the acronym for my organization. The reflection of this chapter, I must say, that is premised on a statement in a story of one of the NGO donors, and I quote, "The role of membership-based organization is unconvincing in the work of increasing accountability, donor funding, and technical support. And therefore, this form of support should be going directly to community-focused organizations for them to be able to influence change at local level and build their capacities for change." End of quote. So therefore, my chapter is saying, is this true or false? I now turn to the presentation that is highlighting the role of membership-based non-governmental organization. So my presentation outline quickly, I'll give a background of civil society in Zambia, and then I'll move on to talk about the overview of NGO, which is the case in question. I'll also look briefly at literature by other people, what they are saying on the role of MBOs, and then I'll get into looking at the problem that in this case study is looking at, and I'll focus on 3 main points, and then end up with lessons learned and recommendations for NGO leaders. So by way of background, civil society in Zambia has evolved over time in terms of the history and its work in providing basic social services, education, health, agriculture, support, among others. So in short, NGOs or civil society have been responding to community needs. Secondly, pre-independence Zambia saw Christian mission schools. They were at the forefront of social change, critical thinking, as well as advocates for political dissent in the country. Post-independence, we see civil society's focus was mainly on community organizing and mobilization in order to influence liberalization and democratization. And of course, this saw the subsequent emergence of membership-based organization like NGO, which is our case today, which provides for mass reaction, as well as a voice in terms of ending gender inequality, as we can see from the pictures in terms of what the organization does. So MBOs, by and large, like NGO, have been acting as meeting grounds and conduits for grassroots voices in terms of promoting a bottom-up accountability. So what is NGO? Who are we? I'm still in the organization anyway by now. So we were formed in 1985 as a network of women's organization, which is a form of membership organization in Zambia. And we're focusing on coordinating and supporting affiliate members to empower women. So the network has since grown from 9 organizations in 1985 to now 103, further justifying that there's something happening within this particular membership organization. So NGO has been active in promoting women's rights and gender equity and equality at all levels of development, because we want to push women to see that they are not just passive recipients of development, but women need to be the champions of change, as you can see from the picture. So the network by and large thrives to address women's vulnerability and marginalization. So, and also in terms of programming, the organization has been focusing on advancing the status of women and girls through such programs as championing economic empowerment opportunities for women, promoting the health and well-being of women and girls through reproductive health and rights, but also promoting and advocating for access to quality education, and also most importantly, to get women on the decision-making tables in leadership at all levels, be it in the politics or even at public and private sectors. So that is about NGO in terms of what it does as a membership organization. Okay, so I'm now turning into looking at what other authorities are saying around membership-based organizations and their role. So first you will see that Lucky is a 1965 author, and what he stated then in 1965, from literature review, I've seen that even coming forth the 2010 and 2019, it's a build-up to what has already been stated by authorities in terms of analyzing membership-based organization. So according to Lucky, he stated that members that benefited from various trainings had their confidence built and inculcate desirable action, which is targeting communities to change their behavior and practices. So, and in order to drive the common good, the issue there is driving the common good as a collective. The second one, which was Brown and Kaligonka, stated also that multi-organization initiatives that mobilize many actors around common concerns can be critically important to expanding the impact of NGOs, both at national level and local levels. And again, when you really look at Saravansi 2019, talking about the financial intermediary role of membership organization, he stated that NGOs' income generating activities are an essential connection between collective economic gains and actions, as well as building the capabilities of affiliate members to solve community problems for sustainability. So we see there that is also very key. And then the fourth one is Von Dopp, 1996, around organizing and mobilizing communities. He stated, NGOs have had to organize to demand for multi-party democratic system and inclusive governance by challenging suppression of freedoms and association. So again, further testifying that there is need for inclusiveness in the approach. Lastly, amongst many, of course, Kanye and Kramer in 2002 stated that large-scale social change requires broad-based cross-sector coordination beyond the isolated intervention. So this simply just goes to be able to solidify what I'm bringing out in this chapter. So the summary of the case study presentation that I've tried to summarize in these 10 minutes around the three key issues that this chapter focused on was: number one, enhancing institutional and technical skills of affiliate members for local impact as a strategic role of MBOs. And in this case, we are looking at what NGOCC did. First and foremost, before I talk about what NGOCC did, what is the problem that is being resolved with this enhancing institutional technical capacities? Number one is weak institutional capacities. When organizations are operating as a single entity on their own, they may not have all the institutional capacities they need to affect change. And then the second problem that is being resolved is the issue of duplication of efforts that sometimes or many times lead to poor targeting in programming for standalone organization. So in this MBO of NGOCC, what have we done over the years? First and foremost, we promoted peer learning opportunities amongst the affiliate members through training, mentoring and coaching, and some of them involved exchange programs, study circle groups, to be able to ensure that our members benefit in that regard. Then secondly, we've also promoted the coordination around program design and implementation, such that our members are able to respond to one strategic kind of intent for the network. In that way, we can be able to coordinate members' efforts. And what has come out of this strategic role of NGOCC in terms of enhancing institutional capacities and technical one is that the knowledge of our affiliate members had been enhanced with improved participation and influence, because members are seeing value, they are able to participate effectively, and they are also able to influence at local level. Number two, there's clarity of mission and focus, because the NGOCC has a code of conduct that guides its coordination role, and also because the programming is coordinated from a strategic intent, our members are being coordinated in such a way that they are keeping to the mission and vision of the network. Then thirdly, we've seen the growth in membership, I said, from 9 in 1985 to more than 100. So meaning that the growth in membership indicates that there is something happening within the membership-based organization, including the diversity of thematic areas where we are looking at different aspects. It's women's leadership, it's girl child education, it's health for women. So all these are under the umbrella, and we are able to affect change because of the dynamics that we come from a gender perspective. So that is key lesson number one in terms of enhancing institution. I'll move to the second one.
Ngwasi, you have what?
Okay. The funding of affiliate members for their sustainability. The problem that is being resolved there by this strategic role is the competition for resources. Many standalone organizations are able to compete, but when you are part of the network, that is also ameliorated. The limited resource mobilization skills, no one organization will have all the skills. So what has NGOCC done? It has mobilized resources into the common pool for equitable allocation to its members. Members are now benefiting. And then the emphasis on improving accountability amongst our members, it's also something that is proving to be helping our members in terms of them accounting for resources as well as other actions. What has come out of there? Availability of financial resources to support the collective cause. So we have, resources that we are getting from different partners, and also the partner goodwill that has been built. There are some partners who are now finding it comfort to work directly with some of our members because they know that their accountability is up to speed. The third lesson, building broad-based relationships for the network strength. What is the problem being resolved there? The fragmented focus. Because if you don't have a broad-based relationship, the focus may be fragmented in different areas, all sorts of campaigns. But that is being ameliorated under the membership-based. And also lack of incentives to build consensus with others. So within the NGOCC, that incentive has been created because the members are seeing benefit, because their relationship building is also going just at local level, is also cascading to national level. There's also representation and joint advocacy campaigns. Many of our members are representing the network in different platforms, including statutory bodies. So in that way, our representation is wide and vast. So what is the result we are seeing from there? Visibility and voice to influence the greater good, broader representation with geographical scope. We are able to actually be in most of the regions, bodies and commissions as a network. And in that way, we are bridging the rural and urban divide in terms of the representation, and thereby building a critical mass for legitimacy and credibility. When NGOCC speaks, even the policymakers are able to understand because they know that we are speaking on behalf of the larger network. So what are the lessons that we are learning from the NGOCC experience? First and foremost.
Ngwasi, you're out of time. I'm wondering if you can maybe.
I'll summarize.
Okay.
So the lesson is that capacity building initiatives can elevate members' perspective. The peer learning is more practical because it allows information sharing and co-creation. The finances contribute to governance and management effectiveness as well as sustainability. But also the member-based organizations that invest in building competences of members can prioritize. So recommendations quickly, that's the last slide. Therefore, the chapter justifies the role of MBOs in coordinating and building capacities of affiliate members. One, NGO leaders need to apply innovative mixed peer learning capacity building approaches, the ones that work. Secondly, there is need for NGO leaders to engage in diversifying multi-year and restricted funding for sustained coordination. And lastly, in order to undertake regular evaluation of network level effectiveness, MBO leaders need to invest in network analysis techniques to keep their members reinvigorated for collective influence. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Ngwasi. So we're going to hold on our questions for Ngwasi. Please put any questions you have for her in the chat, and we'll pick those up in the Q&A. So now I want to turn it over to Charles Gwando for our next presentation.
Thank you very much. If you can hear me, I will start my presentation now. My name is Charles Gundo. I come from an organization called ORONGO Widows and Orphans Program, which is in Kenya. Kenya is in the west. Kenya is in East Africa, and the organization is based in the town called Kisumu, which is in the west of Kenya, just at the shores of Lake Victoria. The presentation is entitled Small Fists, Big Punch, Collaborations for Grassroots Civil Society Organizations. Small Fists there is representative of the grassroots civil society organizations that I want to talk about in this presentation. And the big punch there refers to the kind of impact I envisage them having if they come together in an effective collaborative arrangement. I will address this presentation from the point of this question: how do grassroots civil society organizations collaborate effectively with other entities within and across sectors? Now, the organization ORONGO Widows and Orphans Program is a registered non-governmental organization under the NGOs Act of Kenya of 1990. It was registered in 2009, March, but it has a history that is longer than that. It began in around 1995, 96. It was started by my own mother when she was responding to the kind of problems that we were having at the time. In Kenya, the HIV/AIDS pandemic was prevalent, and my part of the country was hit very hard. It had the highest prevalence in the country at that time. So there were many orphans, many widows, and many households that were in need of help, and the stigma on HIV/AIDS was very high. So she started this humble project as a grassroots civil society organization, and the family supported her by donating the first parcel of land and constructing the first office and hall for her meetings. She went on with that work until in 2009, we got this registration as a non-governmental organization. And since then, we've retained the character of being family-based, household-based, and community-grounded. These kinds of organizations, the grassroots civil society organizations in Kenya, are very, very many. But the NGOs are heard a lot more. They have a bigger voice. If you look at the Kenya NGO sector report of 2018-2019, it tells you that there were about 11,262 NGOs in Kenya that were recognized by the NGOs board, and over 300,000 of these grassroots civil society organizations, making about 96% if you do that comparison between the NGOs and the grassroots civil society organizations. However, these organizations tend not to be heard that much, and the issue of collaboration has not been addressed adequately enough. If you look at a recent study, as recent as 2018, Majid Van Wessel and others say that there is more concentration on dominance of northern CSOs and how that impinges on southern CSOs' autonomy. But there is very little work that has been done on the relative importance of different collaborations for southern CSOs. So this presentation is from the perspective of a practitioner, but based in the Kenyan context, so we cannot export this to other countries without caveats. The presentation will address three major areas. One is the grassroots CSO's preparedness for collaboration, identifying partners for collaboration, and clarifying reasons for collaboration. We are mainly concerned with the grassroots CSOs, and we'll be looking at it from that perspective. The word collaboration has its Greek origin in a word that is, I think if I try collaborare or collaborea, however they pronounce it, which means to work together. And the definition of collaboration has been debated quite a bit until recently. The boundaries were not quite distinct, but it's within a continuum of concepts, from cooperation, which is a bit short-term and loose arrangement of relationships, and then coordination, which becomes a bit more formal, and collaboration, which is more long-term and with a common goal or objective. Now, the issues that grassroots civil society organizations grapple with tend to be very complex. It might be one, but for the solution to be achieved, you need a multi-pronged approach. And therefore, collaboration, I think, is very, very important, especially for grassroots civil society organizations that do not have all the resources that they would need to confront these challenges. In our experience, we have encountered many grassroots civil society organizations, and we've also gone through that experience as an organization that started very, very small. We know that you feel very powerless when you're interacting with the bigger organizations. A study by Shava proves this just in 2020, last year. It says that these grassroots civil society organizations see themselves as beggars when they interact with the big organizations, and they have to accept whatever is given down to them. And yet, in our opinion, they are the owners of the problems that need to be sorted out. As OWIDOP, we have gone through the experience ourselves, and we know that there are certain things that can help these grassroots civil society organizations. And we want to share these in this presentation, just a few of those that might be of help. For instance, I will look at two major areas from the aspect of the hard factors and the soft factors. On the hard factors side, from the opinions of Louis in 2009, that's in the literature, it talks about grassroots civil society organizations having some knowledge or technology. Those are the hard factors, some competency of some kind. Now at OWIDOP, we discovered that it's very, very important to have something that you do that when other organizations come to you, they remember you by. You might be a small organization, but if you're doing something unique, even if it's a very small thing, you're doing it well and doing it consistently, you remain in the minds of those that you interact with. And at OWIDOP, we've done a lot of these things based on the problems we're trying to solve. For instance, we've had mushroom farming in an area where mushroom farming is not very common, cricket farming in an area where cricket farming is not common, and we have fed our children in households that are very poor, things like cricket mixed with the flour. And that is a very, very nutritious thing. So you go to a household that is very poor, but you find that the children are very healthy. The secret is at OWIDOP. And when people come to us and learn some of these things, we remain in their minds and we no longer become that small organization that can be ignored. We begin to punch above our weight. So that is very important. On the soft side, it's also very, very important for grassroots civil society organizations to have good, even if they're simple, but good internal structures and processes and a good vision, which is very, very clear. This is very, very important because it helps you earn what is called organizational trust. Other people begin to support you, and they don't have to be big things. You have an inventory, you have a small cash analysis book, you have a diary of activities every day. Those are very, very important because they help you become trusted. There are also several activities that we have engaged in over the years that we think can be very helpful to other grassroots civil society organizations. For instance, we stumbled onto becoming a research entry point for researchers. When we first had our first researcher using us as the entry point into the community, we did not know that it would open the door for several other people to work with us and institutions around us. Within Kisumu universities have brought people to do master studies and do their research through us into the communities, the different communities that we work with. And it has grown to the extent that we've had students from Sweden, from Finland, from the US coming to the organization to do that. We've also operated as a volunteer service and work experience hub for institutions around us. And this has created a relationship between us and those institutions. We also do a lot of events organizing to help us network more. As you can see on the slide, we have on that occasion down there, we had visitors from Italy, and we invited grassroots organizations to our center, and they presented a lot of items, including artifacts and all sorts of things to showcase what they do and also to improve their network. So those are some things that organizations can do to help them power above their weight, punch above their weight in collaborations. We also insist on the grassroots civil society organizations that we work with, that now they have to at least have one social enterprise or an income generating activity as part of their activities. That's very, very important for us because we know it helps them to build their profile. You need to know your strengths and do a comprehensive network map of the organizations involved around you. And for grassroots civil society organizations in our context, we realize that it's very important for them to maintain contact with government continually, because government may not be useful in many areas, but at least you get a lot of information there. They will know what's going on, policies, projects that are ongoing, and that way you get into the highway of information easily. In identifying partners for collaboration, we especially want to highlight some of the red flags that you need to be careful about. For instance, an organization that has a history of conflict, it might not be very wise to begin a collaboration with them if the internal structures are not very, very clear, if the vision is not clear, and if you start the collaboration and you realize that they're not active in the various forums, then it might be a difficult partner in the collaboration. On the question of drivers and reasons for collaboration, I want to start by quoting George Bernard Shaw, who talks about having an apple each and exchanging, both of you end up with one apple each. But if you have an idea each, you exchange, each has two ideas, and therefore you grow. It just points to the importance of effective collaborations. Now, the drivers of collaboration are many, but one of the most important ones is leadership. Leadership is very, very key. If an organization is lucky to have a leadership that has the vision of what collaborative arrangements can do for them, we believe that these grassroots CSOs can have expertise that they do not have within them, but through the collaboration, they get people who can help them in those areas, and so on and so forth. So that's very, very important. There is consequential incentives, which happens, for instance, if there is a calamity, groups are forced to come together as a consequence of the calamity to attend to that problem. There might also be a call for proposals that would also bring, those are consequential incentives. They would bring groups together to collaborate. There is also uncertainty. People are not sure of what tomorrow will bring. They come together and try to collaborate. Interdependence is there. But if you look at all these things, it just tells you that collaboration is very, very necessary, because these things are describing the real situation that exists in our societies today.
Charles, this is Lean. The internet bumped me out.
Oh, sorry.
So you have, can you wrap it up in about a minute or so?
Yes, I'm just getting to the last slide.
Thank you.
So in conclusion, I want to say that we find collaborations very, very important, and especially for the grassroots civil society organizations, and especially in the South, we think it's very, very crucial that they have them. And if they are well planned, they would reap very, very good results and help us have more effective impact. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Charles. Again, we're gonna, I just encourage folks to pop their questions into the chat, and we're gonna move on to Itoro Anaba. I hope I pronounced that right, Itoro. You can correct me.
You did. Yeah. Good afternoon. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. My name is Itoro Anaba, and I work with Partnership for Justice, an organization that is based in Lagos, Nigeria. This afternoon, or in the next 10 minutes, I'll be sharing the experience of Partnership for Justice in working with the Lagos State government in a campaign that is aimed at ending rape and sexual violence in the state. So I'll just start by talking about why such a partnership is important. And there are several reasons for such partnership, but we're looking at just 3 of such reasons, which is one that is propounded by Brenkerkov, who said that because of the complex nature and scale of public service, the government cannot address the issues that are required by the citizens alone. And so it's important that there's a partnership. And also, it's also stated that CSOs are actually more effective and efficient than the government, because they're not bogged down by bureaucracy. And so they are more flexible through the way they do things. And according to Solomon, he says that CSO government partnership brings about mutual benefit and interdependency, in the sense that one complements the other. But Brinkerkov, in his definition of partnership, has highlighted certain ingredients that can be found when there's a CSO government partnership. And such ingredients include agreed objectives. He also talked about mutually agreed objectives, comparative advantages, mutual influence, respective autonomy, mutual respect, equal participation in decision-making, mutual accountability, and transparency. So these are the major ingredients that should be found in a CSO government partnership. And so we go on to look at the situation.
Toro, did you want to use your full screen presentation mode? There you go. Thanks.
Okay. So because of the political environment in Nigeria, it did not create an environment that's made it easy for such partnership to be in operation. We have seen that since 1960, when Nigeria got independence, it has mostly been ruled by the military from 1966 to 1979, from 1983 to 1999. And the role of CSOs during this period was that of an opposition party, if I could call it that. So because CSOs wanted to oust the military and restore democracy, there were a lot of massive protests, there were a lot of demonstrations in opposition to the undemocratic principles of the military. So the military was very suspicious of CSOs because they felt CSOs were implementing the agenda of their foreign donors. So there was that mutual dislike or mutual lack of trust between CSOs and the military. And because of that, the government now started putting in place steps that would shrink the space within which CSOs could work. And even though the government, in 1999, there was a restoration of democracy in Nigeria, we continue to see some undemocratic issues that are taking place, and the government is taking steps in different ways to ensure that CSOs do not have the capacity to work, all because of the history of CSOs and the military during the military regime. So we're seeing that distrust that is principally at the end of, that distrust is actually what is controlling the relationship between CSOs and the government. Now, it was within this structure of distrust and mass demonstration and shrinking civic space and accusation of implementing foreign policies that the Mirabel Center came into being. And that was in the year 2013. So what is the Mirabel Center? The Mirabel Center is a safe, friendly, and conducive place where one can get free medical and psychosocial support after going through the trauma of rape. Now, since it started in 2013, we have seen about 6,520 clients, and the youngest client is a 3-month-old baby, and the oldest is an 80-year-old grandma. What were the major roadblocks to our partnership with the Lagos State government? One major issue was that rape was not a priority issue. So it was difficult to even discuss the issue of rape with government officials. At the time, we were actually advised not to implement any project on rape. We were asked or advised to implement projects on cancer, especially breast cancer. That was because nobody could talk about rape. It was still being shrouded in secrecy. Survivors were not speaking out. And so the government officials felt there was really no reason to talk about rape. It's not a priority in Nigeria. And so it was a waste of time. It was a waste of resources. And then the whole idea of setting up a sexual assault referral center was innovative because Mirabel Center is the first one in Nigeria to be so established. So it was difficult for government officials to wrap their heads around the fact that one can actually set up a sexual assault referral center and survivors could come to the center to seek help. And more importantly, that those services will be free. Government officials actually suspected that maybe there was something hidden behind it all. Why would you open a center that provides free services? Maybe at some point, you're going to ask for something that we are not aware of. So they were very suspicious of us because in the first place, rape wasn't actually an issue. And here was a center that was coming up to talk about an issue that they did not think was a priority. On the other hand, there was also the challenge of bureaucracy and red tape. When you want something from the government, it could stay on a table for 3-4 days. So you have to move from one table to the other in order to get it done. And in that entire process, time was going, and we were at the risk of losing our grant because the donor agency was very uncomfortable with the waste of time. But the major roadblock was not only from the part of government. Even those of us that were implementing this project, we were also very wary of being in a partnership with government because we're worried that if we are in a partnership with government, we will lose our autonomy. It will also affect our professionalism at the center. How would our clients have confidence in a center that is linked to a government that is already having a reputation for inefficiency and inability to deliver on service delivery for the citizens? So on both sides of the table, there were major roadblocks to this partnership with the government. But there were strategies that we used in engaging the government. From the beginning in 2013, we embarked on partnership drive. So it was a deliberate and strategic option for us to engage with the government, because we knew that a holistic approach to issue of rape and sexual violence needed a lot of other partners that were in that whole spectrum of service delivery. So we started from the beginning. It was deliberate, it was strategic. And when we started discussions with the Ministry of Health, it took us a long time. They kept pushing us from one table to the other, come today, come tomorrow, because they couldn't understand what we were talking about. Then we made a strategic move to start discussions with the Ministry of Justice. And Ministry of Justice immediately understood what we were talking about, the complementary role that the Mirabel Center would play in the campaign to end rape and sexual violence in Lagos State. So it was only at this point that we had a breakthrough and we were able to have further discussions on strategic engagement or partnership with the government. Another strategy that we used was a partners meeting. We called all the partners that we felt we were working with to meetings at regular intervals. And we showed them at that meeting that it was important to come together in order to succeed in this campaign. We made it in a way that they could understand that it's not about us alone as Mirabel Center. It was about all of us, and that if we are going to succeed in this campaign to end rape in Lagos State and then subsequently in Nigeria, we needed to work together. Another strategy was our monthly media engagement, during which we showcased our disaggregated data, and this data showed the prevalence of rape in Lagos State. And so continuously using the media made it very obvious that rape was an issue. And along the way, we also engaged in social media campaign, which we tagged Save Mirabel Center. So why is this? Yes, please.
This is Lane. You have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, I have 2 minutes more?
Yeah.
Okay, so why is this partnership successful? It's successful because we have a common goal, which is to end rape in Lagos State. So both the government and Mirabel Center had that common goal. It was also mutually beneficial to the partners because we provided credible data to the government, and the government provided a legal framework within which you could work. So it's also complementary because we had survivors that could tell their stories, and then the Ministry of Justice could prosecute cases. Of course, there was independence of the partners, as well as willingness to partner and time. It also means that we need time to build a relationship with the government. So this graph actually shows in picture what happens. Here we have the Mirabel Center. Here we are providing counseling and medical services to survivors. We provide forensic evidence to the Ministry of Justice and the Nigerian police, and they use this forensic evidence in court for successful prosecution, and hopefully they'll get justice for the survivors. And so that is what we have done. Is it an easy ride? No, it is not an easy ride. But is the partnership worth it? Yes, it is worth it. Because with the partnership with the government, we have been able to succeed in Mirabel Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Itoro. We had 3 amazing presentations, and I would either encourage participants to, because I cannot see you, to just throw your questions into the chat and raise your hand, and I can call on you. So the first question I see here is from, is it Hilma? A question for Charles. Hilma, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. My question to Charles was that he was speaking of collaboration or collaborative fundraising. So I wanted to know what has been his experience with collaborative fundraising, especially between organizations that have perhaps had they have grown enough, and the small to medium organizations, and how does he advise one to navigate such power differences, either in putting together the proposal or in implementation?
Thank you very much, Hilma. I think that's a very slippery area. In our experience, it depends on when you enter the arrangement. And if it's done before the signing of the contract and so on and so forth, you might have the ability to negotiate for certain roles within the arrangement. But if not, if the contract has been signed by the principal recipient of the funds, then the grassroots CSOs tend to be tied to being very patient and growing slowly over time, getting whatever they can get to build themselves up to a position where they can negotiate a bit more strongly. But this collaboration journey, I think it requires quite a bit of patience and having a goal that is a bit more long-term than short-term, and especially when it comes to the fundraising issues. I hope that answers part of your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And we just had a note from, is it Nikuraku? Am I, or Nikuraka? I didn't know if you wanted to, yes, I didn't know if you wanted to raise a question.
Nkiruka, do you want to raise your question?
No, I just want to say well done to all the speakers. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you. While other people are thinking, I'll just raise a couple of questions, one for Ituro and one for Ngwasi. Ngwasi, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about NGO-CC's relationship to other gender networks on the continent, and whether you were talking a lot in your presentation about building that network, but I'm wondering if you can say a little about whether you've been able to expand beyond Zambia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Len. Definitely, one of the key aspects with the gender agenda is that it is a global issue, which even as member states way back in 1995 brought everybody together in Beijing to be able to come up with a blueprint on how they were going to advance the gender agenda. So our existence, definitely we are not an island, and we strongly invest in building relationships both in the country and outside the country. So like in the region, we recognize that our country, our leaders do have a voice within the SADC region. And therefore, our participation is to influence our advocacy, where we are taking the voice from the grassroots to the national level and to the region. So we can follow our leaders where they are, because there are quite a number of instruments and conventions that are signed in the name of citizens. And then when they get back home, you find holding them to account is the. So at continental level, we also recognize that we need to build relationships. We are members of the FEMNET, which is at continental level. And at global level, we are members under the United Nations Economic Council. So it is in those spaces that we also take our voice, but we recognize that there is need to co-create and learn what is working in other countries, and we bring it back home. So the beauty of being a network is that what we pick from the region, from the continent, from the global spaces, we are able to take back right to the communities. For the communities to appreciate what is done in their name at those levels. And that is what has earned us credibility as a network, because our advocacy is evidence-based. We are able to put statistics, and we are able to hold our government leaders, including our own traditional leaders, to account for some of the statements that they make in the name of our constituency, which is largely women and girls.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ngwasi. Thank you very much. And in Ituro, I mean, both of you are working on gender issues in really powerful and amazing ways, which is fantastic. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how you were able to craft that partnership with government in a way that maintained the credibility in the eyes of your constituents. I know you talked a little bit about that in the chapter. That was so important in terms of how you were able to negotiate that.
Thank you very much, Prof. Our clients are very important to us. and they were even more important to us than the partnership. So from the beginning of our discussions with the government officials, we made it very clear that the basic principle for us is what is in the best interest of our clients. So whoever we're speaking to, at whatever level, even when we're speaking to our donor, prospective donors, we made it very clear that any demand from a donor agency or from a government official would only be based on the best interest of our clients. And we made it very clear to our clients as well that whatever relationship we have will also be guided by the best interest of our clients. And so, well, once a client walks into the center, we ensure that the client understands the principle of confidentiality. And that confidentiality cannot be broken under any circumstance except with the consent of our client. So we made it clear as well when we're discussing with government officials that they cannot make demands beyond what is guided and protected by the principles of confidentiality. And when we insisted, and we also showed that we could walk away if those principles are violated, and we had a record of showing that, yes, we maintained and took seriously the principle of confidentiality and what is in the best interest of our clients, it became easier along the way. And so we now had a record, even with the Nigerian police, and they knew that there are some things they couldn't do because Mirabel Center was involved. And so they would tell our clients, if you're going to Mirabel Center, this, you cannot do it there. So it became very well known. It was not an easy journey, but when we insisted and showed by our records that we would only follow what is in the best interest of our clients and also abide by the principles of confidentiality, with time we're able to earn the respect of both the government as well as the confidence of our clients.
Thank you so much, Itoro. Just looking in the chat, are there other folks with questions? It's hard to see. I'm just going to scroll through and look for hands as well. We have a lot of folks on the in the Zoom. Okay, any questions for our first three presenters? Any other questions? Okay, well, you folks can continue to give that some thought and pop those into the chat. What I might suggest, do the presenters want to add anything else to what they've said already, given that I know I had to cut you off at different points before we take a short stretch break? Okay, all right, so it is a little bit before 12. We're going to start back at 12:05. So if folks want to put on their mute button and just get a stretch, we'll come back at about, we'll come back right at 12:05 and start right on the dot. So thank you very much, Itoro, Ngwasi, Charles, for your wonderful presentations.